Welcome back to All About Winning Daily Fantasy Sports. My name is Ty Patton. This is truly my favorite video of the week when I finally get to put all my research together and build some winning lineups. Just a quick reminder, the players that are in this player pool are all from the main slate, which means I exclude the players from the games on Thursday night, Sunday night, and Monday night. Before we jump right in and look at some manual and optimized lineups, first thing we want to do is take a quick look back at the player pool that I created in my various videos through the week. These are the quarterbacks that will be in the player pool for week 8. Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson, Carr from Oakland, Tannehill, Stafford, and Goff. I also want to add that Drew Brees has been given the start for tomorrow. He's in the player pool, and I have removed Matt Ryan. He has been ruled out for tomorrow's game. Running backs: Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey, Todd Gurley, Chris Carson, Saquon Barkley, Le'Veon Bell, Mack from Indianapolis, Latavius Murray, and Ty Johnson. Wide receivers: DeAndre Hopkins, John Brown from Buffalo, Tyrell Williams from Oakland. Williams has a questionable tag. It can go right up to game time. The game's at 4:25. Make sure you check the injury report. Always check the injury report anyway, but check it at 11:30 for the early games and between 2:30 and 3 for the late games, depending on what time the late games play. They have to release their injury report 90 minutes before the kickoff. But he still has a questionable tag, so if you're going to use him, make sure you check that around 3 o'clock. Lockett from Seattle, Corey Davis from Tennessee, Michael Thomas from New Orleans, Cooper Kupp from the Rams, Julio Jones from Atlanta, Allen from the Chargers. Here's another one. He hasn't been ruled out. He has a questionable tag, but his coach did say that he will, if he does play, he will limit his snaps. So temper your expectations for Keenan Allen tomorrow. He's only 6,400, which is why I really liked him. But keep that in mind. He's not probably going to get a full workload. Kenny Galladay from Detroit, and I've added Kenny Stills from Houston. These are the these are the tight ends. Josh Hill from New Orleans, Hooper from Atlanta, Darren Waller from Oakland, Hunter Henry from the Chargers, Jonnu Smith from Tennessee, Fells and Atkins from Houston, and I've added Hollister from Seattle. Defensive special teams: Rams, Saints, and Lions. Before I do my manual build, I wanted to share my optimizer results with you first, and I wanted to explain to you why and how I use the optimizer. First, I do it to get some randomized results from just my player pool. I only use the players that are in my player pool. This week, there are 37 players in the player pool, and I just want to see, because with a manual build, you're likely to not see all the different combinations that you can get. I set it for 150 lineups. I put it as 3 unique players, meaning each lineup has to have at least 3 players that are different from all the others. I do set some minimum, maximum exposures. I set a rule that the quarterback has to have at least one target from his team, wide receiver, tight end. I don't like to use the defensive special teams against a quarterback from opposite teams. And I just set it and let it go. Now, this week it ran, when I put it for 150 lineups, it said it could only create 85 lineups with those restrictions. So this week, as I mentioned, I had 37 players. This is I'm going to show you the first optimized lineup that the optimizer gave me. At quarterback was Ryan Tannehill. Running back, Latavius Murray. And we're going to talk about this when I get done with it. Running back, Chris Carson. Wide receiver, John Brown. Wide receiver, Kenny Galladay. Wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. Tight end, Jonah Smith, 2,800. Flex was Darren Waller, tight end from Oakland. And defensive special teams was the Lions. This lineup had a projected ownership of 112.95, which is just kind of average. It's not really high and not really low. This is not my favorite lineup, but those are usually the ones that do really well. So I will put this in a contest somewhere. I don't do MME. I don't have anything against anybody that does. I'm just not in the position to do that. So I play a variety of contests and spread my lineups out like that. The things that I like about this lineup that was created, I think Tannehill could be a really good value pick at 5,100. I don't think Tennessee is going to be able to move the ball on the ground against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is ranked number 3 against the rush. Latavius Murray at running back, it's still a question whether Kamara will be playing. Let's check that real quick. Still has a questionable tag, and I believe it's a 1 o'clock game. Had limited participation on Thursday and Friday, which gives him a chance to play. So as I mentioned earlier, always check the injury report. Chris Carson. I like Carson. I like him more now that Ryan has been ruled out. I don't know how much that Seattle's actually going to have to throw the ball to control this game. Schaub is definitely a step down from Matt Ryan. And Carson has been getting a huge workload. He's going to get last week. Elijah Penny didn't touch the ball at all. It was all Chris Carson's show, and we could get probably the same scenario this week. Atlanta is a little bit better against the run, but that could be due to teams that are really lighting them up through the air. So I kind of like him. He's got a high ownership. I was going to look at that. See where he's coming in right now. He's third behind McCaffrey and Fournette, and 15% on the site that I use. So I'll probably have more shares now that Ryan has been ruled out. John Brown, I really like John Brown this week. You can play him as a one-off. Don't necessarily have to tie him up with Josh Allen. But Philadelphia's pass defense has just been getting destroyed through the air, and Brown has a really good matchup tomorrow. So I like that. I like that price. And he's not, see what his projected ownership is. It's not in the, he's at 11%. So he's below Galladay, Fitzgerald, Lockett, Chark, Hopkins out. He's even below Keenan Allen. Kenny Galladay, he's one of my favorite receivers this week. He has a phenomenal individual matchup with the defensive back from the Giants. He has a 5-inch height difference from all their cornerbacks. And I think a lot of people might go back to Marvin Jones after the week that he had, recency bias, and I'm hoping that the ownership doesn't go much higher on him. He's 11. He's just above John Brown at 11.60%. But I really like him. I think that game's going to have a lot of points in it, and I will have him in a lot of lineups. I'll probably be above the field on ownership. Next is DeAndre Hopkins. This is another receiver I think that has an absolutely phenomenal matchup. Oakland just traded their best cornerback, and they traded the cornerback to Houston. So there's some guys out there. They're probably going to try to double team him, but when he's running the patterns that he runs, slants, what have you, that's not going to matter. Will Fuller's out, but I believe that Hopkins and Kenny Stills from Houston are both going to have really good games, and don't mind stacking them with Deshaun Watson. Tight end Jonnu Smith. This is real sneaky. Delaney Walker's been ruled out. Smith's $2,800. I never punt any position. and the optimizer kicked this lineup out. But I like Smith. I think this game might be a little bit higher scoring than people are thinking. Tannehill's a different quarterback than Mariota, and I could see a situation. He doesn't have to get much to pay off value at $2,800. So, and if he gets a touchdown, he's definitely going to get value. So, flex position, Darren Waller. I really like Waller as part of the stack that I mentioned. Hopkins, Watson, Hopkins, still bringing it back to Waller. I really like that stack. He's going to get peppered with a lot of targets. I thought last week that Green Bay would do everything that they could to shut him down since Tyrell Williams was out, and it still didn't matter. He was the top scoring tight end last week, 34.60 fantasy points. So Carr really likes going to him, and I look for him to have a good game. And defense special teams, Lions, I really like to use home favorites, and I really like home favorites that are playing against rookie quarterbacks. So, and they're going to be a little bit lower owned than the more popular Patriots and Rams. So, there you go. They let that particular lineup left $200 on the board, and so there you go. Now, I also ran the optimizer, and I didn't do this last week, and I only put one restriction on it, and that was that the quarterback must have one target. Now, last week in the optimal lineup using my player pool, you could have used Jared Goff without any of his targets and placed 75th out of 85th out of 440 some thousand entries, which would have paid you $750 on your $10 entry. But I only put that restriction on there, and I just wanted to see what the optimizer would do with projections and things like that, and see if I'm missing something, if I'm under owned on some players, or just missing out on something. And this was the lineup that it produced without any restrictions. Quarterback Deshaun Watson, running back James White, which is, running back Alvin Kamara, wide receiver Kenny Stills. I believe Stills is about 4,700. Wide receiver Tyler Boyd. Wide receiver Cortland Sutton. See here, 5,300. Tight end Evan Ingram. Good. Flex position Nick Chubb. Defense special team Jaguars. This lineup really interesting as well. It had a 102.09 ownership, which is lower than the one that I showed you with my restrictions. But it did have a projected fantasy score of 168.27 points. I really like Watson. I like Watson more than Wilson now that Ryan has been ruled out. I do like the James White. I didn't have White in the player pool this week, but it makes sense because Cleveland has trouble with running backs catching the ball out of the backfield, and everybody's probably going to be on Sony Michel after the 3-touchdown night that he had the other night against the Jets. So that makes sense. And $5,100, he should be able to get value pretty easy. Alvin Kamara, questionable tag, 7,600. I really don't like that much at all. If Kamara does play, not sure if he's going to be limited or if they're just keeping it quiet. But I just feel like I can, and they left 300 on the board with this lineup. There's a couple right around him that I actually like more. I like Fournette more due to volume. and Gurley is right underneath Kamara, and I like him more as well. Wait a minute, that had Christian Kirk. That's not right. The wide receiver was Kenny Stills. I clicked the wrong one. I'm sorry. He was right underneath him. So Kenny Stills. I like Stills teaming him up with Watson. I like Hopkins more. I believe Stills will be coming out of the slot a lot more. Don't know that it really matters. I believe Watson's going to be able to put a lot of points on the board against Oakland. Green Bay shredded this past defense last week, and then they went and traded probably their best cornerback. And so I definitely like Watson. As I said, though, I like DeAndre Hopkins a little bit more. I wouldn't even mind putting them both in the same lineup. That might be a little bit contrarian, but I definitely like him at 4,700. Tyler Boyd, I didn't have any Bengal players in my player pool. He does get a lot of targets. This could be a game where they're behind and they're going to have to throw the ball. I just don't like that matchup, especially now that they have Jalen Ramsey. He did make a instant impact last week with the interception return. So I won't have any exposure to Tyler Boyd. That game is actually not at the Rams either. It's in England. Somehow I missed that this week. Rams are a pretty big favorite, and the game is actually, yeah, the Rams are a 13-point favorite, and the game total is 48.5 points. Under Boyd was Cortland Sutton against Indianapolis. I could see Denver moving the ball through the air against Indianapolis. Emmanuel Sanders is gone, so those targets are going to have to go to Sutton and Deshaun Hamilton. He's only 5,300. I'm not real crazy about it. Obviously, he's not in my player pool, but could be a nice pivot off of some of the other higher owned receivers. Tight end Evan Ingram. That makes sense. They are way underdog with the fourth highest total on the board. Game should have some scoring. Detroit does give up points to the tight end position, and you can see a situation where they have to, where they're going to, Jones is going to be dropping the ball off to Barkley and Ingram, and Shepard is still out at wide receiver. They do have Golden Tate, which is one of my, I like Tate actually a little bit more than Ingram in a revenge factor, but Ingram definitely has the possibility of finding value at that $5,300 price. He was way up over that just a few weeks ago. Flex is Nick Chubb. That's really interesting against New England and their defense. That's definitely contrarian. I would say that Chubb is going to be, let's look at his ownership. Nick Chubb is way down the list. Yeah, Nick Chubb's only 6.21% ownership, projected ownership right now. So he could be a real contrarian play. You would think that if New England builds a lead, which they're capable of doing, then you end up phasing out the running game for Cleveland. So you're playing Nick Chubb, you're thinking that that game's going to stay close. And one thing that I did see, the weather's supposed to be questionable up there with some rain and wind. So this could be a game where the running backs do the damage. And except for Le'Veon Bell, the Patriots really haven't been tried at the running back position. So that's real interesting. It's definitely a way to differentiate yourself against the field. And then it has the Jaguars at defense. After what the Jets did on Monday night, see where Jacksonville would be. Have a lot of It's $300, and that $300 on the table, and has a projected score of 168.27. Now, my part. This is this is the lineup that I've been working on. I will be using, as I mentioned, players from my player pool, and I do like to game stack, especially in GPP tournaments, head to head. Not so much focused on that head to head or cash builds, double ups, things like that. You focused on making sure you have players that have a decent floor. But this lineup here is more of a GPP type lineup, and I've been working on this for a few days. Quarterback, Matt Stafford. I really like Stafford in this game. I believe he's going to be able to move the ball through the air. I believe they're going to have to move the ball through the air. Kerryon Johnson's out. Not that Kerryon Johnson's been tearing it up this year, but they're going to be using Ty Johnson and McKissick at the running back position. McKissick will come in on passing downs. There's a lot of ownership going to Ty Johnson because he's a starting running back and he's only 4,900. But Kerryon Johnson wasn't getting a lot of volume. I don't think that suddenly Detroit's going to just lean on their running back now that they're using the backup running back. Running back, Saquon Barkley, same game. I really like Barkley. The matchup against Detroit is a really good matchup. They're giving up a ton of points to the running back position. He also adds the dimension of the passing game. And with the situation with the Giants and a rookie quarterback and number one receivers out, they do have Golden Tate now. But I definitely like this matchup with Barkley. Running back, Todd Gurley. This is a phenomenal matchup for Gurley. Mac Brown has already been ruled out, so the only other running back to get carries would be Darrell Henderson. Last week, I believe or the last 2 weeks, I believe he's gotten 33% of the carries. But I think with 60 to 70% of the carries, Gurley can get it done. Cincinnati is ranked dead last against the run. This game, as I mentioned, is in England. They are a large favorite, and we haven't had that real big Gurley breakout game. I think he can definitely get it done. The price tag doesn't scare me away. His ownership is not that high, 6.75%, and he's way down the list. He's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There's 14 running backs above Todd Gurley, so I really like him in this matchup. Wide receiver, as I mentioned earlier, 6,400. Kenny Galladay. He's one of my favorite plays of the week. This is a phenomenal matchup for him, an individual matchup. I think that some of the ownership is going to go to Marvin Jones on recency bias. Jones might get some again. Don't think he's going to get 4 touchdowns again. But this could be a situation where Stafford, due to the running back situation, and they actually called up some players from the practice squad too. So they have 4 running backs on their roster now. But I think this is throw it up and let Galladay jump up and get it. And just a really good matchup in this game. Next is I'll have to be watching the ownership on this player. I really like him. He's going to play. This game's at, I believe it's at 4. Let's make sure what time this game is. I think it's 4:25. 4:25. And it's still listed as questionable. Coach Gruden said on Friday, asked if he thought he would be able to play. He said, "I think so." Really like this matchup in this game. I'm pretty sure there's gonna be, it is gonna be a pretty high scoring game. It was the second highest total on the board this week, below Seattle and Atlanta, and it's 51 and a half or 52 points right now. And when he was before his injury, Carr was going to him a lot, and he might be a nice pivot off of Waller. Waller's going to be really high owned because of volume, so that Williams might be a nice pivot off of him, and it gives me exposure, excuse me, to that game. So I really like Tyrell Williams this week. Next, in the same game, player that I added, Kenny Stills. Fuller's out, and they will try to double team DeAndre Hopkins, and I think that Stills can get value at that 4,700 price tag. Second highest total on the board. I have two players. I get exposure to that game, and I really like Kenny Stills at that price. The cornerback that's going to be matched up against him most of the time is a slower cornerback as well, and Kenny Stills is known for his speed. So I like to keep those type of things in mind as well. Tight end, I like Jonnu Smith from Tennessee. Haney Hill's probably going to have to put the ball in the air more, and if Tampa Bay is able to score some points, I really like Jonnu Smith even more, especially at that price tag. 2,800. It doesn't take that much to get value, 5-6 times value, and I can see a situation with Tannehill leaning on the tight end this week. And with Delaney Walker out, he doesn't have to worry about someone else getting the targets. Flex, same game, Tennessee game. Another target for Tannehill is Corey Davis. I wanted to get exposure to this game. I just got a feeling it's going to be a lot higher scoring than people think. I just really wasn't sold on the Ryan Tannehill so much, and these guys could get it done, um, and I could still have quarterback that I really wanted in the quarterback position. Corey Davis, Tannehill has been targeting him a lot, and I actually feel like Davis is his favorite target. And Tampa Bay does give up a lot of points to the wide receiver position. My research video that I did earlier this week, I found him at $4,400. I believe Tampa Bay is 27th against the pass, giving up a lot of points to the wide receiver position, but they are real stingy against the running game. So I have two players from that game. And defensive special teams, going to go off of the Patriots. Patriots will be high owned for good reason, 4,300, and now with weather being a concern. Now, if it's a game where it's low scoring and the Browns are leaning on Chubb, I don't think the Patriots will get value at 4,300. The Rams, on the other hand, I like the higher total games with the big favorites, because if they're going to be well ahead, and they're projected to be well ahead with a 13-point, being a 13-point favorite, that means Cincinnati is going to have to put the ball in the air. Last week, Dalton was horrendous. He threw two interceptions in a row, back to back, one after an interception for a touchdown. Got the ball back very next play, threw another interception. So he's known to turn the ball over. And I think with Aaron Donald putting pressure on him, all kinds of bad things can happen when you're on the ball and you're an erratic quarterback. So there's the lineup that I'm working on. I will have this in some. Like I said, I'll definitely have to watch the injury as far as Williams is concerned. I checked that at 11:30 on Sundays and at 3 o'clock on Sundays anyway, because you never know, someone during warmups gets a hamstring issue or something. A few weeks ago, so Xavier Howard for Miami was ruled out like an hour before game time, 2 hours before game time. Nobody really seen that coming, and I was actually off McLaren for Washington in that game because of that. And then when Howard got ruled out, that made McLaren become an even better play. So it's not just the players that are fantasy relevant as far as scoring points, but you also want to see if there's some defensive players that are out, which can affect defenses as well. So this is a mini game stack, Stafford and Galladay, and I'm bringing it back with Barkley. I got some exposure to the Houston-Oakland game with Williams and Stills, and I really like that. I also have 2 targets for Tannehill with Smith and Davis. Tannehill is going to be popular due to his price this week, so I have exposure to that as well. And as I mentioned, the Rams, I really like that. With this lineup, as I mentioned, I did use the entire salary. The projected ownership on this, I use on the site that I use, it actually only has a 60.35 ownership. So this particular lineup build isn't real popular, which is what you want. That's why I said I was going to be putting this in a EPP lineup. So if you copy this and we do well, you'll at least be splitting with one person, me. And as I mentioned, I play different contests and move stuff around, but I use the player pool that I developed through the week. Now I want to take a quick look at the games this week and just give my take on some of the fantasy relevant players. Seattle, Atlanta. Seattle's a 7-point favorite. It's the highest total on the board of 52.5 points. I had originally wrote a note that a lot depends on Ryan. Well, Ryan has been ruled out. So if Ryan had been in the game, I was going to like the passing game more, meaning I was going to like Wilson and Lockett and Julio Jones and Hooper. I still have some interest in Hooper as a safety net for Schaub. I'm just not. I don't know what we're going to get with Matt Schaub. He hasn't. I think he's only thrown 16 passes in 4 years. I think that's what I've seen. And he might be someone to take a good stab on, even if it was garbage time, because it's not. I don't think all of a sudden, because they're using this backup quarterbacks, that Atlanta's going to develop a really good running game with Devontae Freeman. But you could see Freeman getting some passes, getting checked down, and Hooper. So, and now Sanu is gone, so those targets go somewhere between Jones and Calvin Ridley. And Gage will probably be stepping in at the slot. I'm not sure if they'll move Ridley to the slot or leave him out wide and bring Gage in, but I just, now that Ryan is out, I'm probably going to have more share of Carson. He is really high owned this week. He's actually number 3. This site has said it's right around 16%. So I don't think I'll be there with Chris Carson. I'll have some shares, but I definitely like him more now that Ryan's out. Oakland and Houston. This is the second highest total on the board at 52 points. I like both quarterbacks, Watson and Derek Carr. Like all the receivers, Hopkins, Stills. I like Williams. I like the tight end for Oakland, Waller. I might have some shares of Josh Jacobs because he's been getting a ton of work. Houston's a little bit more stingy in the running game. But I will have a couple lineups where I'm just going to go all in stack on this game. I really like it. I think there's going to be some points. I think Houston will beat Oakland. I don't think it's going to be close, but they're going to build up the lead, and I don't think it's going to be with Carlos Hyde. Just got to hope that there's not the pass interference in the end zone 2 or 3 times and Hyde punches it in from 1 yard out. Arizona and New Orleans, 49.5 point game total. Drew Brees' first game back. Patrick Peterson will be on Michael Thomas. Kind of going to limit my uh, expectations for Michael Thomas this week. He's really highly owned. I can let you know on the site that I use, he actually is. He was one of the. He's actually fell off. He's down to 9%. So he might actually be a more contrarian pick. But if Kamara's out, I'm thinking that Drew Brees is different than Teddy Bridgewater. Bridgewater did his job while Brees was out, but Brees definitely likes to go to Michael Thomas. But I'll tell you one receiver. I don't have him in the player pool, but I definitely think this affects him because when Brees was before Brees got hurt, he was going to him a lot, and that's Teddy again. So if Peterson's able to limit Thomas somewhat, perhaps Teddy again could have a bigger game. Not real high on Latavius Murray, and I'm not sure if I'm willing to pay 7,600 for Kamara, who may or may not be limited, and not even sure if he's going to be playing yet. For Arizona, I do have a little interest in Larry Fitzgerald. Murray does like to go to him, especially in the red zone. Fitzgerald's had 7 targets inside the 10 so far, so have a little bit of interest in him. Giants of Detroit. This game has a 49 point game total. I like a lot of players from this game. I like Matt Stafford, like Kenny Galladay. I also have a little bit of interest in the tight end Hawkinson. Going to kind of stay away from Marvin Jones. I think he's going to have a little bit higher ownership due to recency bias. And I think half his fantasy points that he scored this year all came last week. Half of them were in that game. He had a 46-point game with those 4 touchdowns. So you see Stafford passing or spreading the ball around a little bit more. Galladay has a phenomenal matchup. So I really like that. I think Saquon Barkley has a really good matchup. Don't think the Giants are going to want to put too much on Daniel Jones. And Evan Ingram, have a little bit of interest in him. I think this game could definitely shoot out and get way above the game total of 49. But there's a lot of players that I have interest in and stacking that game. Cincinnati versus the Rams, 48.5 point game total. The Rams a 13.5 point favorite. This game's in England. I think the Rams are going to control the game with Gurley and Henderson. Henderson will get about a third of the carries. Looking for Gurley hasn't had that one real big game, but I could see a situation he falls in the end zone a couple times, and probably going to be in the top 5 running backs this week. And I like him at his price. A little bit pivot off of McCaffrey and Barkley and Fournette. Fournette's going to be highly owned as well, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I really like that matchup. Cincinnati is dead last against the run, number 32, and just giving up a ton of points to the running back position. For Gurley to get there, he's going to need to catch a few passes, which he's done in the past, and I really I'll probably be above the field on Todd Gurley. I like Jared Goff. One thing is, if they're just blowing out the Bengals, is he going to have to put the ball in the air that much? But he might have to put the ball in the air to get there. My hope is that they pass it down the field and let Gurley run it in. But Cooper Kupp, you always got to have some consideration for him. He's been a target monster. The last couple of weeks, he hasn't really had the big games like he was getting, but he's still getting targeted a lot. I don't really have any interest in the Bengal players. The one optimized lineup I had through Tyler Boyd out there, which I found interesting. I don't think the passing game has a good matchup at all. I don't see anywhere in this game where the Bengals have a good matchup. The Bengals are ranked number 6 against the pass, but that's because people are crushing them by running the ball. They don't have to throw the ball. So, and again, that game's in England, 1 o'clock game, and I'm pretty sure the Rams are going to have their way with them. Tampa Bay is at Tennessee. Game total's 46. I have a little bit of interest in Jameis Winston. I seen something earlier where he had less than a 1% ownership. Now I don't have him in my player pool, but I wouldn't be surprised if he put together a good game. Tampa Bay, not only is Tennessee not going to be able to run against Tampa Bay is not going to run on Tennessee. They don't have the running backs to do it anyway. So Chris Godwin could be, and Evans could be sneaky. I did listen to and looked at a few things. A lot of people are pretty high on Chris Godwin this week. Tennessee's pass defense isn't really a pushover, but it's easier to throw the ball on them than it is to run the ball. For Tennessee, Tannehill, I do have him in the player pool. He's popular this week because of his salary and the fact that Tampa Bay is giving up a ton of points to the wide receiver position, and teams are having their way with them moving the ball through the air. So if Tampa Bay is able to score some points, you could see a situation where Tannehill has a good day. Corey Davis and AJ Brown, they're basically 1 and 1A as far as wide receivers for Tennessee. I believe Brown actually got 8 targets last week. And I think that tight end, that's why I have him in the player pool, Janu Smith. I think he's real sneaky, and at $2,800, I could see him paying off and being viable. I would use him in a cash lineup as well. So those are the players that I like in that game. Cleveland at New England, game totals 46. As I mentioned, the weather could be a concern with some winds and some rain. I don't have him in the player pool. Julian Edelman's interesting. I thought it was interesting when I ran that optimizer that it spit out James White. I didn't have him in the player pool. Cleveland does have a problem with running backs out of the backfield catching passes. And if people were going to go back to Sony Michel after the big week that he had Monday night, James White might actually be the guy that you want to go to at 5,100. He's $100 less than Michel. But I kind of see this game as a trap a little bit. They were just on Monday night. Their defense is going to be real popular. Things I don't like is like Cleveland players coming out and guaranteeing a win and putting up billboard material. New England's not a Bush League team. They don't need that type of stuff to get motivated. And I'm sure that Belichick will have something in store for Cleveland. I definitely didn't like the Nick Chubb in the optimizer when had Chubb in the flex position. Not too crazy about that, but those are the kind of lineups that come out of nowhere and they win the big GPPs, or like someone that has somebody that's less than 1% owned or something, and you think, I didn't see that coming. I actually heard one guy last night. He was talking to a program I listen to pretty much every week, and he had interest in the Cleveland defense, and that's really contrarian. And but it made sense. He was talking about Cleveland's supposed to have their 2 cornerbacks back. Can't remember their names, but they've been out, and one of them they consider him to be pretty much shut down. Now New England does have Mohamed Sanu now to go along with Edelman and Dorsett, and of course Josh Gordon's been placed on IR. But I don't know that I put a lot of faith in Cleveland shutting down New England, but they also felt that they were going to be able to get pressure on Brady. He's been sacked 11 times this year, which is on pace for more than last year. But just Belichick and the game plan, the guy seems to be able to come up with something for everybody. So I don't really trust a lot of the Cleveland players, and the defensive backs for Cleveland. they are shut down. Gilmore is the shutdown quarter. He's the best cornerback in the NFL, and I can see him being matched up with Beckham, not being able to get a lot done that way. Denver at Indianapolis. Game total is 43.5 points. I have a little bit of interest in Mack from Indianapolis. I don't believe that Brissett, those wide receivers, T.Y. Hilton is going to be able to get anything done against that Denver pass defense. I believe they're number 3, and but I can see people have been able to move the ball on the ground against Denver, and could see Mack getting a large share of carries tomorrow, and he doesn't split carries with anyone. Naheem Hines comes in and gets some passes out of the backfield, but I see this game. I actually see this game as being shortened due to both teams trying to run the ball. I see the Lindsey and Freeman getting a lot of carries against Indianapolis. And as I mentioned, Indianapolis bringing it back with Mack. Kind of have a little bit of interest in the Indianapolis defense at home as a small favorite. Philadelphia at Buffalo, 43-point game total. Buffalo's, I believe, a 2-point. Buffalo is a 1.5-point game. I'm 1.5-point favorite. Josh Allen and John Brown. I will have some lineups where I have them stacked together. And one thing I was hearing people say is bring it, if you're going to do a game stack, go with Brown and Allen and Brown and bring it back with Ertz. Ertz hasn't had really big games. For some reason, Wentz isn't going to him a lot. The other tight end, like last week against Dallas, he did pretty well. That Dallas Goddard, and maybe Ertz does break out this week. Buffalo's defense is really stingy. They're at home, and Philly's defense is really susceptible to the pass. And I can see John Brown having a really big game. So don't have a lot of interest in a lot of those players. As I mentioned, just John Brown and Josh Allen. I have a couple shares of that. I probably won't be bringing it back with Ertz. Carolina at San Fran. Game totals 42. Christian McCaffrey. He is still, I believe his ownership's 27.84%. So obviously this matchup isn't scaring a lot of people. I don't know what to think. I know a few weeks ago when he went off against, I believe it was Jacksonville, and scored 51 points. I didn't totally fade him, but I was well under what everyone else had him, and he goes off and busts the slate with 51 points, and you don't have your fair share of him. It's not going to be a good week. I told myself then I would never fade him. I'm worried about this one a little bit on San Francisco's defense. Looks to be pretty stingy. However, teams have been, that's how they've been moving the ball on them on the ground, and they have not been challenged by anybody. Nick Chubb, I believe, got like 80 yards on him and a touchdown in that game. And but they took Cleveland out of the game and built up a big lead. And you have a lead like that, that pretty much eliminates your running game because you can't catch up running the ball. McCaffrey's a different beast. He's not game script dependent. He's going to be on the field, win, lose, or draw. They're going to give it to him out of the back. And that's one weakness too, San Francisco. They have a little bit of difficulty with pass catching running backs, and McCaffrey can put it on you. And it only takes one or two big plays and 30 point range. I hate that salary, 9,200. It takes a lot for him to pay that off. I'll have some shares of him. It's probably going to be what they call FOMO, fear of missing out. But I am scared of that. But I don't think I'm going to be 27% on Christian McCaffrey this week. And for San Francisco, They have Emmanuel Sanders now. Jimmy Garoppolo isn't a great fantasy quarterback. I mean, he just manages the game. I don't see this as a real high scoring game. Obviously, Vegas doesn't either with the 42-point game total. I don't really have a lot of interest in George Kittle. He's not getting a lot of targets right now. And I believe he actually had he's the most expensive. He had a questionable tag, I guess, until today. He's been cleared to play. He's got a groin bothering him. And let's see, if you look at his targets, Washington, had 5, but that was just, they were playing in a monsoon. And then he had 8. Looked like he's getting about 8 a game. So, I mean, he is doing Cincinnati only had 3, but Cincinnati, all you have to do is run the ball against them. Tampa Bay, he had 10. So that might be the way that San Francisco moves the ball in Carolina. I don't have him in the player pool. Feel like I can get some value at the tight end position. Tight ends had a lot of variance through the first 7 weeks. Jets at Jacksonville. 2 of my favorite running backs are in this game, Leonard Fournette and Le'Veon Bell. I feel that I mean Fournette, just based on volume, and he's up there. I mean, he's received the most touches so far in the NFL, and averaging just under what Christian McCaffrey is. He's catching passes, and if he starts falling in the end zone, he's really going to be um, racking up some points. He's only had 1 touchdown this year, and he's had 172 touches so far. But I really like him. They do lean on him. He's not game script dependent. He will be out there, and those are the running backs that I'm looking for. I'm building my lineups, and likewise, the guy he's playing against, Le'Veon Bell, he's going to be out there regardless of game script as well. And Bell broke off a couple nice runs against the Patriots the other night. Some of them got called back from penalties or um, you know various other reasons, but um, he is getting a lot of carries and a lot of touches, and I think he'll definitely pay off his price at I believe he yeah 6,900. I like Le'Veon Bell a lot. I don't know that I'd put Fournette and Bell in the same game. That might be a little bit contrarian. Fournette is number 2 in ownership right now, 18.66%, and Bell is down the list. He's under James White, Derrick Henry. He's even under David Johnson, and we don't even know if he's playing. He's under Matt Breida. No, I'm sorry, he's just above Matt Breida and now Alvin Kamara. He's 7.59%. So I'm going to have probably be higher than the field on Le'Veon Bell. Chargers at Chicago. Game total's 40. I don't have a lot of interest in the players in this game. I liked Keenan Allen at first because of his price, 6,400. But if his snaps are going to be limited, I'm not going to take a chance on that. I'm just not going to. I'll just if he breaks the slate, then that's what happens. I might have him sprinkled in a couple lineups, but I'm not going to have a big share of Keenan Allen. I was going to use him to be contrarian this week. I think that he had a lot lower ownership, but I can see Rivers going to Mike Williams, and he definitely likes going to that tight end Hunter Henry. So um, I'll have Hunter Henry in a few of my lineups as well. Chicago, their offense, um, David Montgomery might be nice pivot off, contrarian play. I didn't have him in the player pool. Might be how Chicago tries to move the ball against the Chargers. Um, the Bear defense, I had them in a lot of my lineups last week. They were 3,000, and I jumped all over that, and it did not work out at home against the Saints, and so I'm not going to be I am going to have some recency bias there. I'm not going to have too much of the Bears defense this week. Chargers coming east, that might affect them a little bit, but I really don't have a whole lot of interest in this game. I hope this research provides some value and helps you put together some winning lineups tomorrow. I will be back tomorrow afternoon to do the Sunday night football showdown slate between the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs. I encourage you guys to please drop any comments or opinions below, and I'll try to, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them before 1 o'clock. Remember to check that injury report at 11:30 for the 1 o'clock games. Check it between 2:30 and 3 o'clock for the 4 o'clock games. Um, you always want to stay up on that. Um, if you would do me a favor and share this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get notified when my next video posts. It really helps me out, and I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for joining me and hanging in there with me this week. Good luck, and I hope to hear that we do some winning. I'll be seeing you tomorrow with the showdown video. My name is Ty Patton. This is all about winning daily fantasy sports. Have a good evening.